Hello, this is Lisa, CEO of Sight for White and White Sense. Welcome you to this week's Talking News on Friday, the 4th of July, 2025. I'm delighted to report that we have now found our new CEO who will start with us at the end of July. This has been deliberately timed to coincide with our open day on the 30th of July. Supporters, members, family, friends are all welcome on the 30th of July to the open house at Millbrook House, and you will be able to meet Danny on that day too. I will stay in post for a month with him in order to ensure a smoother possible transfer over, and therefore my official leaving date will be at the end of August. My apologies for the Meta AI glasses hadn't arrived in time for the coffee morning this week, but they are now in my possession and we hope to demonstrate them next Wednesday at the coffee morning. Everybody, hope you're enjoying the beautiful weather. Stay safe. Lisa, CEO, Sight for White and White Sense.
Here is this week's charity news for the 4th of July. Tomorrow, Saturday the 5th of July, we will be at the Independent Living Show at GGS Island Riding Centre, Staplers, Newport. The show is between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. This showcases Isle of Wight services that support you living independently at home. Please pop along and say hello to Karen and Ruth.
Swimming at Medina is on Monday between 1:15 p.m. and 2 p.m. We have the whole pool, so whether you wish to swim lanes or just have gentle exercise in the pool, you'll be made very welcome. The cost is £6 and transport is available, although limited. All members are very welcome to join.
Yoga is on Tuesday at Millbrook House. This group is now full, but if you wish to put your name down on the waiting list, please call the office.
Coffee and Chat is on Wednesday, starting at 10 a.m. until 11:30 a.m. The cost is £2 to include drinks and cake. Staff are on hand to help with any queries and to demonstrate equipment.
On Thursday, we will be bucket collecting in Asda, Newport, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Please pop by and say hello to our wonderful volunteers.
Walk and Talk is next Friday, the 11th of July. This will be around Parkhurst Forest, with coffee and cake being served afterwards within the forest.
Our next hearing cafe is on Monday the 14th of July at the Donkey Sanctuary, Wroxall, between 10:30 a.m. and 12 p.m. All are very welcome.
Tandem Biking Club is now up and running, normally held on a Tuesday between Newport Industrial Estate and Cowes. Please call the office and book a slot. Our next planned session is on Tuesday 15th of July.
Our next Eye on Social is on Tuesday the 15th of July and is a trip to Bembridge Fort. There is a charge of £10 per person, plus transport if required. If you are interested and would like to join us, please let the office know. This trip will only run if enough people are interested in attending.
Save the date, July 30th, our day of celebration here at Millbrook House, between 12 p.m. and 3 p.m. We will be having afternoon tea and entertainment. This is open to all members, volunteers and supporters of the charity to come together and celebrate the work we all do for the Isle of Wight. Please call the office if you would like to attend, along with any dietary requirements. This day will also be our formal farewell to Lisa, our CEO, who is retiring. Please pop in during the celebrations and say hello.
Wet Wheels trips are planned for the 11th of August and the 1st of September. This chartered boat will take members out onto the Solent for a 90-minute trip. The cost is £8 per person, but once again numbers are limited, so a ballot will have to be held if oversubscribed. Please call the office if you are interested.
This is Michael reading an article from Ireland Echo. Irelanders urged to say what matters as local government reorganisation survey opens. Irelanders are being invited to take part in a region-wide survey that will help shape the future of local government. The Local Government Reorganisation (LGR) survey gives everyone the chance to share their views on how councils could be restructured to better serve local communities. The Isle of Wight Council is working in partnership with councils across Hampshire, Portsmouth and Southampton to explore changes to the current system. While most of Hampshire operates under a two-tier structure, with services split between county and district or borough councils, the Isle of Wight already functions as a unitary authority, delivering all local services directly. Under the proposals being considered, the Isle of Wight would remain a unitary authority. Meanwhile, the mainland councils are exploring the creation of 4 unitary councils to replace the existing 15-council structure. This joint survey marks the next phase of the LGR process, following the submission of an interim plan for change earlier this year. It focuses on gathering feedback from across the area, with a particular emphasis on local community identity. Ireland residents are being encouraged to take part and make their voices heard before 27th of July 2025.
This is Petrina reading from the Ireland Echo. New Sunset Flyer ticket offers discounted Whitelink fares to islanders. A new discounted Islander ferry ticket, valid for late night and early morning crossings, was launched this week, thanks to work between the Solent Transport User Group and Whitelink. Sunset Flyer, which has been rolled out today, Tuesday, is valid on the Fishbourne to Portsmouth and Yarmouth to Lymington car ferry routes. The ticket is valued for 30 days, provided you book sailings between 2000 and 0905. Tickets are set to cost £45 each way, making for a £90 limit period return. This is a trial offer where bookings can be made until the 30th of September 2025, with travel available from now through to the 31st of December 2025. It is hoped that following an initial 3-month trial period, the ticket will also be rolled out to those visiting the island from the mainland. The new ticket has been introduced thanks to talks between the Cross Solent operator and STUG, S-T-U-G, previously known as the Whitelink Users Group. A spokesperson for STUG has said, STUG, formerly WUG, WUG, are delighted that the collaborative work with Whitelink has resulted in a number of concessions, discounts and benefits for islanders. Our young people, the islanders with disability, those without multi-link passes and people travelling to private hospitals and for dentistry can now travel with some free passes, reduced fares and discounted multi-links. Katie Taylor, Chief Executive of Whitelink, has said, "We are pleased to launch the Sunset Flyer as an Islander exclusive in response to customers asking for an off-peak fixed price option for breaks away from the island and visiting their family on the mainland. We hope residents will make use of this offer to make some special memories over the summer and beyond."
Former Red Cross headquarters to become a vet surgery, from the Isle of Wight Radio, read by Lee. An Isle of Wight vets will be moving into a prominent empty building in Newport. County Hall has given Wight vets planning consent to turn Red Cross House, a vacant former British Red Cross headquarters on Honeycross Way, into veterinary surgery. White Vet's current clinic is at 15 Chapel Street in Newport. Its plans include minor external alterations to the existing Honeycross Way premises, as well as a complete internal fit-out, according to design access statement written by Gordon Designs LLP. It says, the previous use of the premises was the Red Cross headquarters. They vacated the site in May 2024. My clients saw a unique opportunity to occupy these premises to safeguard their business's future within Newport. Since 2022, their business, White Vets, has gone from strength to strength. My clients made a bold move to purchase these premises when they came on the market in May 2024, after an extensive searching of the area for a suitable property that not only could house their immediate needs, but that of the future and be in a position that is accessible to all their clients. The existing business will transfer over to these new premises with their existing staff members once the conversion works are completed, and in the future will, as a standard, offer local employment for trained veterinary surgeons, veterinary nurses, together with support staff as demand arises for further staff. Justifying the approval, planning officers wrote, the proposal would allow for the reuse of previously developed land, supporting the economy and providing employment and offering a useful service. The proposed external alterations and materials are considered in keeping with the prevailing character of the area and the appearance in its locality. Given the previous use of the site as an established commercial, office, employment use, and the surrounding uses, as well as the separation distances from residential properties and conditions to be imposed on hours of use, officers considered that the proposal would not result in any harmful impacts on neighbouring properties. 5 conditions were attached to the consent for reasons of legal and planning policy compliance, highway safety, and residential amenity.
Isle of Wight rowers faced rough seas at South Sea Regatta. From the Island Echo. Rowers from across the Isle of Wight battled tough conditions at the South Sea Regatta on Saturday the 28th of June, the largest one-day coastal rowing event in the UK. Crews from Newport Ryde and Shanklin Sandown rowing clubs joined hundreds of rowers along the south coast for the event, which brought together clubs from both the Hampshire and Dorset and Coast ARA associations. Blustery conditions and choppy waters made the racing a real test for all the crews, with waves playing a big part in the day's results. Newport took 6 crews to South Sea, including a Junior Open 4 that won their heat comfortably, but saw their race end after a large wave swamped their boat during the final. The junior pair also struggled with steering issues, colliding with another crew. The Open Novice crew rowed strongly, finishing 5th in their heat and narrowly missing the final, while the Women's Novice and Junior B crews were knocked out in their heats. The Junior 16 mixed quad, racing against older boys, finished 9th out of 12 starters in a commendable performance. Shanklin Sandown brought home 3 wins. The club's ladies' junior pair of Anna Scott and Esme Walters led from start to finish, crossing the line at more than 10 lengths ahead despite rough seas. Shanklin's ladies' junior pair earlier in the day, the club's mixed junior 14 quad and girls' junior 16 quad, both secured clear victories. The men's novice 4 notched up a best ever second place, while the masters ladies novice 4 and boys junior 16 quad all gained valuable experience in the tricky conditions. Whitelink-sponsored Ride Rowing Club entered one of their biggest squads of the season with 11 crews and scullers. The Open Junior Senior 4 of Will Hall, Paddy Kearney, Joe Roberts and Charlie Watts finished second in the final. Ride's Open Novice 4 won their heat but had to settle for 4th in the final, while the Women's Junior 4A crew also secured a second place finish, earning a crucial Hampshire and Dorset championship point. LR Ride Women's Coastal Junior A of Abby Locke, Fiona Owen, Alexis Owen and Emily Kellerman, with Ruby Reid coxing. The boys' Junior 16 Cox squad raced well into finish second. In the sculling events, Isaac Gibson finished 3rd in the novice sculls final, and the open double sculls pairing came 11th.
There was drama for the Open Coastal Junior coxless pair, who capsized after their turn and were unable to finish. Crews from all three Isle of Wight clubs now look ahead to Swanage Regatta next weekend.
This is Michael reading an article from Isle of Wight Radio. Serious risk to life. Military road fears raised at public meeting. I feel there is a serious risk to life, Freshwater South's new Isle of Wight councillor warned at a public meeting about the iconic military road yesterday. Addressing attendees at Freshwater's West Wight Sports and Community Centre, the Empowering Islanders Group's councillor, Becca Cameron, expressed alarm over how close the panoramic highway is to the cliff edge near Afton Down. Military Road is affected by coastal and landward erosion, with its lifespan uncertain and dependent upon a number of geological and geotechnical factors, according to a recent council briefing. In February last year, County Hall's Director of Community Services, Colin Rowland, said the thoroughfare could be washed away by the sea in between 2 and 10 years' time. Councillor Cameron said, "I call this meeting because I feel there is a serious risk to life. The drone footage shows how serious the risk is and how close the cliff is to the road. The Fisher photo shows what's under the road. When a bus passes over the cliff, you can feel the vibrations underneath. We have no warning system if the road collapses. While I was volunteering with the Freshwater Independent Lifeboat, there was a critical incident practice where a school bus went over the cliff at Afton Down. I know it was years ago, but I've never forgotten it." She pointed to reported recommendations from highway service provider Island Roads for additional monitoring equipment. Additionally, a vehicle restraint system, VRS, has been recommended at the site. A VRS could, for example, be crash barriers along the seaward side of the road, the council said. Councillor Cameron continued, "Why have none of these safety measures been put in place? Would the VRS be strong enough to stop a school bus or aggregate lorry from going over the cliff? When did Island Roads submit these recommendations and to whom? Why has the council not implemented these recommendations?" In a briefing issue last month, County Hall said, "Dialogue has taken place with the Department for Transport, DFT, over the feasibility of funding works to maintain the military road, including the possibility of rerouting the road at an estimated cost of £20 million to £25 million. DFT have advised the council, however, that although the value of the route to local communities and tourism value is recognised, the economic case for these works would not meet the current criteria for National Highways capital funding, and the scheme would need to compete with other schemes on a national level. In respect to Island Roads recommendations, the council said, "The council is in the process of instructing Island Roads in respect of this, monitoring equipment, installation, ensuring the relevant requirements are met. A review will be carried out by the Council on Emergency Management Arrangements."
This is Patrina reading from Isle of Wight Radio. Life's a Beach. Ride brings back wheelchair and accessibility equipment. Visitors to Ride can book sea and sand-friendly wheelchairs, walkers, and other essential accessibility equipment completely free of charge via the Ride Marina website from today, Tuesday, July the 1st. The initiative, running for the second consecutive summer, marks a major step towards in making Ride's beautiful seafront welcoming and accessible for all. Equipment can now be booked easily online. The scheme is part of RIDE's wider commitment to inclusive tourism and improving access for residents and visitors with reduced mobility, disabilities or additional needs. What's available? Sea and sand wheelchairs, designed to travel over soft sand and into the water, allowing users to experience the beach and sea more freely. Beach walker, sturdy, easy-to-maneuver walkers designed for use on sand. 320 metres of accessible boardwalk. A specially laid beach boardwalk stretches 320 metres across Harbour Beach, providing step-free access right onto the sand. Changing place unit. Positioned at the entrance to the boardwalk, this fully equipped changing place includes a height-adjustable bench, ceiling hoist, accessible toilet, and ample space for users and carers. Blue badge parking and step-free routes. Conveniently located parking bays and accessible pathways ensure easy access to all beach facilities, making the beach truly open to all. Ride Seafront should be a place that everyone can enjoy equally, whether you're going for a paddle, meeting friends for a picnic, or just enjoying the view, said a person for the Ride Beach Accessibility team. We've listened to what people need and worked hard to remove barriers so more people can experience everything our beach has to offer. Book today. Equipment is free to use and available 7 days a week. Sea wheelchairs are tide dependent from the 1st of July until the 30th of August. Visitors are encouraged to book in advance to avoid disappointment.
Work to remove loose rock from Belgrave Road to begin this month from the Island Echo, read by Lee. Action is finally set to get underway on Belgrave Road in Ventnor, with works due to start next week to remove loose rock and vegetation from the unstable cliff face that collapsed back in March. A rock fall on the 7th of March forced the closure of Belgrave Road for the second time in recent years, sparking frustration among local residents and businesses. The road was previously shut in 2020 following a landslip and did not reopen until early 2023 after nearly 3 years of disruption. Despite ongoing stability assessments and calls for urgent action, there has been no clear timeline for reopening since the March incident. The Isle of Wight Council said in April that they were seeking to speed up the process by serving notice to affected landowners. Now, Councillor Ed Blake, local councillor for Ventnor, has provided an update to local residents. He has confirmed that work to remove loose rock and vegetation from the rock face will begin next Wednesday, the 9th of July. It's said that assessments to clear the rock will take place at the same time, with work to start as soon as possible to clear the carriageway obstruction.
Antisocial behaviour hotspots targeted in summer crackdown. From Isle of Wight Radio. Hampshire and Isle of Wight Police and Crime Commissioner Donna Jones has launched a major crackdown on crime and antisocial behaviour in our town centres this summer. Over the next 3 months, police and partners will be using powers, including fixed penalty notices and community protection orders, to tackle issues in 28 hotspot locations across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, which have been identified by police data. Extra foot patrols will also be carried out with officers, PCSOs and special constables working closely with community safety partners, businesses and community groups to help reduce crime. PCC Donna Jones said as the evenings get lighter and schools break up, the demand on policing services increases. Crime reports show antisocial behaviour, retail and street crime can escalate, which takes up valuable resources. I am committed to backing our town centres this summer with a positive police presence and targeted action against crime. I want our town and city centres to be vibrant, welcoming places where businesses thrive and people feel safe to come and shop, socialise and live. That's why I continue to invest in specialist ASB wardens, city centre policing units and local bobbies. Their vital work has already contributed to 6.3% reductions in ASB-related crime over the past year. However, more can always be done. Earlier this month, I launched UK Partners Against Crime as part of our collaborative work with businesses in towns and city centres. The Cutting Edge system provides retailers with a powerful tool to help them report crimes quickly and help police track offenders, share police intelligence, put prolific thieves before a court. Although this is a summer campaign, I'm working all year round to make sure ASB, street crime and violence, is reduced in our communities. This is why I've given local authorities across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight £620,000 over the next financial year for more hotspot patrols and to support wider measures to prevent ASB. Working with our community safety partnerships, I also fund a number of projects which offer young people involved in antisocial behaviour meaningful activities to help reduce crime. I've seen firsthand how organisations and community groups have provided life-changing interventions which have transformed people's lives. Together, we can create safer, thriving town centres and make a lasting difference to our communities. The Safer Streets Summer Initiative will run from the 30th of June to the 30th of September.
Hello, this is Madeline and
this is John.
We're reading the second part of the Talking News. First of all, some news items.
Trio's bus station affray by court reporter. 3 men involved in a violent incident at a bus station have been sentenced. Patrick William O'Flynn, Benjamin David Blenkinsop and William Cantello appeared at the Isle of Wight Crown Court on Wednesday. The offences took place on March 16th at Newport bus station. Police were called at 6:45 p.m. to reports of a public order incident. All 3 were armed during the affray, which was caught on Southern Vectis CCTV. O'Flynn, 41, was armed with a knife, Blenkinsop with a metal bar, and Cantello with a ceramic mug, said Tim Devlin, prosecuting. Although there was no actual violence shown on the bus station footage, it showed a degree of posturing and squaring up, with at one point a member of the public trying to calm the trio down. Blenkinsop, 23, suffered a cut to his chest, and Cantello, 24, a cut to his nose. They both told the police they had fallen on broken glass. A police drone discovered O'Flynn's knife on a building roof in an alleyway close to the bus station. It had blood on it. Blood was also found in O'Flynn's pocket, Mr. Devlin added. Straight after the incident, O'Flynn boarded a bus, but police boarded it soon after and arrested him. Arrests for Blenkinsop and Cantello soon followed. For dad of 3, O'Flynn, Tom Cook said his client had not produced the knife throughout the entirety of the incident and that his actions were reactive. He also has mental health problems, predominantly schizophrenia. For Blenkinsop, Jonathan Underhill described his client's actions as reckless, but he had since shown remorse. What he did at Newport bus station was stupid, which stemmed from an evening of drug use and drinking, he said. It was a short-lived offence, born of impulsive stupidity. For Cantello, Edward Armitage said, when things escalated, he threw the mug, which caused very little disruption. Judge James Newton Price described the affray as a brief but very ugly confrontation. O'Flynn was handed 10 months imprisonment, suspended for 18 months. Blenkinsop and Cantello both have 12-month probation orders. Blenkinsop and O'Flynn will also pay a £200 fine, while Cantello was ordered to do 60 hours unpaid work.
And this from Creekside WI. Members enjoyed a wonderful presentation by Ruth from Sight for Wight. Sight for Wight started as the Isle of Wight Society for the Blind 160 years ago. Ruth gave a short history of her own journey into sight loss, which flagged up some ingrained attitudes to women's health. She explained the importance of protecting your eyes by wearing sunglasses from an early age, not sharing makeup, and using eye products that are in date, etc. Through her journey, Ruth made very supportive and long-lasting friendships. Through the support that Sight for Wight gives to the 700 people that are on their books, friendship and support continue. They offer a whole range of activities and services, from home visits to adaptations to help people enjoy swimming, golf, bowling, sailing, rock climbing, yoga and tandem riding. The group said, "Thank you, Ruth, for being such an enthusiastic speaker. The A1 glasses were impressive. Your story and the work that you and your colleagues do is inspirational."
Red Arrows put on a dazzling display by Oliver Dyer. The iconic Red Arrows painted Ryde skies red, white and blue as they put on a dazzling display for Isle of Wight Armed Forces Day on Sunday. Hundreds, if not thousands, of spectators lined the esplanade, beaches and pier to get the best view. The RAF Aerobatics display team's thunderous entrance was met with rapturous applause by excited onlookers. Arriving in formation at around 11:45, they quickly dispersed before twisting and turning. Their display mesmerised crowds and, at points, drew audible gasps from amazed spectators. They pulled off some of their signature moves, even using their red smoke to create a heart over the Solent. The display lasted for around 20 minutes and finished how it started, with a chorus of clapping. Other displays included the Royal Navy Parachute Display Team, the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight, Hurricane and Spitfire Full Display, and the RAF Falcons Parachute Display Team. Held all along Ryde Esplanade, Isle of Wight Armed Forces Day boasted various entertainments, from parades to shoreside stalls. Look at the County Press Camera Club group on Facebook for more fantastic photos of the aerial displays.
Meetings over fire service shake-up. 2 public meetings will take place next week to discuss proposed fire service changes, including the possible closure of 2 stations on the Isle of Wight. Residents can attend 2 engagement events next Thursday at Bembridge Village Hall and the Community Hall of Yarmouth and District as part of a Hampshire and Isle of Wight Fire and Rescue Service consultation. HIWFRS is proposing 3 major changes: combining the Yarmouth and Freshwater fire stations, permanently ceasing its operational response from Bembridge Fire Station, and removing an aerial ladder platform (ALP) vehicle from the island. The combination of the Yarmouth and Freshwater stations is said to allow HIWFRS to maintain high levels of performance and ensure 2 fire engines are operated in the West Wight, consolidating staff and vehicles from both facilities. Following a 15-month pilot, HIWFRS says permanently relocating the Yarmouth crew and fire engine to Freshwater represents a cost saving of $108,000 annually. The proposed closure of Bembridge Fire Station would allow annual savings of $135,000. HIWFRS says Bembridge experiences a low number of incidents, averaging only 35 per year over the last 5 years. Reducing the number of ALP vehicles across Hampshire and the Isle of Wight from 5 to 4 would save around £1 million on the cost of the replacement of an ALP. HIWFRS says its data analysis shows only one ALP needs to be maintained on the island. Neil Odin, Chief Fire Officer at HIWFRS, said, "We publish a safety plan every 5 years, and we've recently redone our safety plan and looked carefully at the data on how our fire engines and fire stations are used. The Isle of Wight specifically has shown that we've got some places that we don't require anymore. We can use that public money much better. So the focus of this change is making sure that the public money is spent well, whilst providing the best support and protection for our communities." The Bembridge Village Hall event will run between 10:30am and 12:30pm, and the Community Hall of Yarmouth and District session will be from 3:30pm to 5:30pm. HIWFRS's consultation closes on July the 29th. The online survey can be found at www.hansfire.gov.uk.
Cat death issue sparked arson by court reporter. A woman torched a neighbour's Land Rover because she falsely believed badgers he had been feeding had killed a cat. Susan Lupton appeared for sentencing at the Isle of Wight Crown Court on Wednesday after admitting 2 counts of arson in Freshwater on June 20th last year. She was spared an immediate prison sentence. Lupton was a neighbour to Graham Lee, the owner of the Land Rover Defender, and Kavita Hayton of the Square. Lupton set the fire that destroyed Mr. Lee's vehicle and damaged Mrs. Hayton's property, which the fierce blaze spread to. The blaze included a fence, tree, shed, security camera, guttering and vents. The intense heat of the fire also cracked the bedroom window of Mr. and Mrs. Hayton. Both pensioners were in bed at the time of the incident. The court heard how Lupton started the fire because of an irrational belief badgers, cared for by Mr. Lee, had killed another neighbour's cat. When police arrived, Lupton, 62, now of Dairy Crest Drive, Newport, immediately told an officer she had started the fire, while in what police described as being in an elevated mood. Lupton had previously harassed Mr. Lee online, branding him Evil Badger Man. Mr. Lee said she had put out a bowl of food for badgers laced with glass. Joanna Staples, prosecuting, said Mr. Lee had been caring for some badgers and Lupton had decided they had killed a neighbour's cat. Mrs. Hayton said the attack left her genuinely frightened and in a state of fear for many months. Mr. Lee described the loss of his pride and joy Land Rover as beyond words and said Lupton's actions had ruined his life. Judge James Newton Price noted Lupton's fixation on Mr. Lee, her online harassment, and the severe psychological effect her actions had on the victims. He also acknowledged Lupton's mental health struggles, including depression and bipolar disorder. Lupton was sentenced to 2 years imprisonment, suspended for 2 years. She must complete 30 rehabilitation sessions and was given a restraining order, prohibiting her from visiting Freshwater Town Centre, contacting Mr. Lee, posting about him on social media, or filming him. She was ordered to pay £18,385 compensation to Mr. Lee, £500 to Mrs. Hayton, and £1,000 costs.
Historic pub to get new name. The Sloop Inn in Wootton is to get a new name. The pub, known for its carvery roasts, will have its name changed to Stonehouse at the Tide Mill. Council officers have approved Boyer Planning's proposal for internal and external works at the pub, as well as a separate bid for new signage. Consent was granted despite Wootton Bridge Parish Council strongly objecting to the new name. The WBPC spokesperson said, "We feel that changing the name to the Stonehouse at the Tide Mill is a misrepresentation and will be confusing for patrons. It has been a well-known island landmark since the mid-1700s, and Southern Vectis bus stops are designated as the Sloop." WBPC did not, however, object to the internal and external work scheme.
High Street Cafe opens in Newport. A new town centre cafe has opened its doors in a health and well-being centre. Cafe 62, located at 62 High Street in Newport, serves healthy and affordable food and drink. The eatery is run by Ossel Enterprises, who have supported islanders with disabilities through social enterprises for over 30 years. It will offer paid employment and work experience to those who face barriers in the workplace. Mags Gallop, manager of Cafe 62, said, "We want Cafe 62 to be more than a cafe. It's a space where everyone feels welcome. Good food, friendly faces and a relaxed atmosphere are at the heart of what we do. Menu items are supplied by Scarrott's Lane Bakery and other island businesses."
Tree vandalism condemned. An act of vandalism on trees in a park has been widely condemned. The damage in Church Lytton Park, Newport, was discovered on Monday. The vandalism consisted of spraying graffiti and large sections of bark stripped and thrown around the park. The damage has been widely condemned on social media. Elaine Balfour said, "I've seen several idiots pulling the trees to bits in the park. No respect for nature." Sally Garrett described it as brain-dead vandalism. Daniel Sunderland warned that some of the trees would die due to the bark being removed. He said, "Surefire way to kill a tree. Idiots probably didn't even know that." The Isle of Wight Council responded to the incident. A spokesperson said, "We are saddened to report recent incidents of graffiti and damage to trees in Church Lytton Park in Newport and Arctic Park in Cowes, and the destruction of a swing set in Seabreeze Park in Ventnor. This senseless vandalism not only harms our shared public spaces, but also impacts the enjoyment of the parks and play areas for the whole community. These matters have been reported to the police, and we are working closely with them to support their investigation. We encourage anyone who may have witnessed anything suspicious or has information that could assist to come forward and contact the police. Community support is vital in helping us protect and preserve our valued green spaces."
Choirs perform at New York's Carnegie Hall. Choirs from the island have returned from a performance at Carnegie Hall in New York. Medina Community Choir, alongside Gurnard Community Choir and the NHS Nightingales, performed Gabriel Fauré's Requiem in America in June as part of a massed international choir. They will now perform the Requiem in Newport, accompanied by a professional orchestra on July 19th at 7 p.m. and July 20th at 3 p.m. at Newport Minster. Hannah Breer, choir director, said, "We were the only choirs from Europe to be selected to sing at Carnegie Hall in New York. It was a huge honour and privilege to sing in such an awesome venue, and it will be extra special to perform these absolute classics at home at the Minster to Ireland audiences." The concerts will also include the Hallelujah Chorus by Handel, Mozart's Ave Verum and Puccini's Nessun Dorma. Tickets are £10 each, or 4 for £36, and can be booked at mctickets.co.uk. More information about the choir can be found at medinacommunitychoir.org.uk. A retiring collection will be held in support of the Isle of Wight Wave project.
Top tips on keeping your garden healthy in the heat this summer. How can gardeners minimise the damage caused by scorching temperatures? It's about risk management, says Nick Turrell, RHS Horticultural Advisor. No one's going to suddenly change all their plants, getting plants with silver leaves, etc. Some plants are more susceptible than others, and I would say the top 5 are hydrangea, which likes slightly cooler temperatures and plenty of water, Japanese maples, which have thin leaves and lose moisture, fuchsia, astilbes and roses, which are hungry and thirsty. They catch gardeners out. Plants likely to cope better include lavender, rosemary, sedum and other succulents. But what else can we do? 1. Water wisely. Water in the morning because that's when the plants are going to be needing it during the day. Don't spray the leaves or water on top of the leaves. Get it underneath to the roots and use a watering can, not a hose, because if you've a hose, you're more likely to liberally spray it around. Get the nozzle of the watering can right in at the roots. 2. Mulch the surface. To lock in moisture and protect plants during a hot spell, cover the top of container plants with a mulch such as gravel, bark or good quality compost. You should also mulch garden beds to help bedding plants retain moisture and give them a nutrient boost, suggests Dobby's plant buyer Nigel Lawton. 3. Don't buy new plants. If the hot weather is forecast for a few weeks, there's no point planting new plants. Anything that has been established for more than 2 years should be okay, because it already has its roots down deep enough to cope with unusual circumstances. 4. Take hanging baskets down. The compost can evaporate so quickly that it's best to take them down during a heat wave and put them in the shade where they won't lose water so rapidly. 5. Pick vegetables which are likely to bolt. Lettuces are prone to running to seed in hot weather, so pick them young and keep them in the fridge or shade them with netting to keep the heat of the sun at bay. 6. Find shade. For those especially vulnerable during extreme heat, temporary shade structures using old bed sheets, garden furniture or shade cloths can make all the difference. 7. Huddle patio plots. Put them in the shade together to create a microclimate and reduce evaporation. 8. Look after wildlife. Make sure bird baths are topped up and put some pebbles in water-filled pot saucers to allow insects to land and drink as well. 9. Leave your grass. The grass may look like a mass of straw, but it will recover when the autumn rain comes. so if you can stand it looking brown, just leave it, says Turrell. However, if it has been newly laid and hasn't yet been through a winter, you'll need to water it. 10. Plant drought-tolerant species. If you have spaces you must fill, plug the gap with drought-tolerant species such as lavender, rosemary, salvia and sedum. But remember, they will also need watering until they become established. 11. Improve your soil by adding organic matter. And 12. Use a water butt. It's a vital investment.
Sailing spectacle set to attract hundreds. An Isle of Wight sailing spectacle is set to attract hundreds of spectators as the Rolex Fastnet race will start in Cowes later this month. The 100th anniversary of the race will start on the island and finish in Cherbourg-en-Cotentin, with crews taking on the 695-mile course. Several island crews are expected to take part in the event, which is the largest offshore race in the world. The race begins on Saturday, July 26, from the Royal Yacht Squadron in Cowes. The best spots for spectators to see the start of the race will be along Cowes Green and Egypt Esplanade. The course then takes crews out on the Solent, with sailing boats visible from Yarmouth. The Rolex Fastnet race then follows the coast to Land's End in Cornwall, before rounding the Fastnet Rock off the south coast of Ireland and returning west to Cherbourg in France.
Young rider dressage. Young riders have impressed in a recent equestrian competition. Pupils from Priory School of Our Lady of Walsingham in Whippingham triumphed at an inter-school dressage event held at Little Kennelly Farm in Godsill, securing both team and individual honours. The Priory A team took first place overall, while the Priory B team finished third. 7 pupils represented the school at the event, which featured 50 competitors and 15 teams. The A team was made up of Bella Miles, Bella White, Chloe Tapp and Connie Stockley. The B team included Eleanor Mart, Ella Brown and Elsa Birch. In individual rankings, Connie Stockley claimed first place, followed by Bella Miles in third, Ella Brown in fourth and Chloe Tapp in fifth. Miss Rowden said, "We are all very proud of our riders and so delighted for the girls. They were a pleasure to watch riding, and their skills and talent were very impressive. We are now hoping to join the National Schools Equestrian Association and compete in national events on the mainland."
Accessible Beach Scheme returns. A seaside town has launched its second summer of free accessibility equipment to help more people enjoy the beach. Ride is once again offering sea and sand-friendly wheelchairs, walkers and other mobility aids at no cost through a booking system on the Ride Marina website. The scheme is part of the town's efforts to improve access for residents and visitors with disabilities or reduced mobility. A spokesman for the Ride Beach Accessibility team said, "Ride's seafront should be a place that everyone can enjoy equally, whether you're going for a paddle, meeting friends for a picnic, or just enjoying the view. We've listened to what people need and worked hard to remove barriers so more people can experience everything our beach has to offer. Available equipment includes specialised wheelchairs designed for use on sand and in the sea, as well as sturdy beach walkers. The scheme runs until August 30th and is open 7 days a week. Other accessible features include a 320-metre boardwalk, a fully equipped changing place unit, blue badge parking bays and step-free pathways. Equipment can be reserved in advance through the Ride Marina website.
State of Sandown splits views. Following damning reports in national newspapers this week, lamenting the decline of seaside town Sandown, we went along to find out what locals and tourists had to say about the resort. Sandown has been receiving national attention in the Daily Mail and Daily Express, thanks to its decaying and empty hotels and a high street that has seen better days. The Daily Express described it as a crumbling seaside town, and the Daily Mail as a ghost town. However, Sandown is more complex and is still a crucial town to the island, one with community, soul and hidden gems. Here's what people on the high street told us. Robert Ford, a coach driver from near Pontypridd, has been coming to Sandown for 20 years and describes it as way downhill. He said, "People still come here. I don't know why. I think it's the island that attracts them. Sandown is the best beach on the island, but the town's not the same. Cowes is nice, Ryde is nice, but here there's just nothing." Grania O'Neill from Ryde said, "I don't know why there isn't a compulsory purchase order put on those buildings. They have such architectural interest. It's just annoying nothing seems to be getting done about it." Another resident, Mary, said the whole town looks dreadful and she doesn't like living there. Hazel Patterson, who has lived in Sandown for 12 years, said friends that visited the town compared it to Beirut and said it's hard to think of people investing in Sandown.
David, a resident of Sandown, took aim at drugs and drunkards. He said, "For visitors, it doesn't give a very good impression. It's embarrassing sometimes. However," he added, "I love the community spirit, the carnival committee and the clean-up volunteers on the beaches. They're absolutely brilliant. Despite its problems, it's still a nice place to be." Holidaymakers still flock to the town, many fueled by the nostalgia of trips to Sandown in past decades. Phil and Sue Collier from South Wales came on holiday to the island for the first time in 40 years. Sue said, "We were shocked. It's a shame to see the buildings. We've been staying in Newchurch and have been impressed with the bus services. They run on time." Phil added, "We've enjoyed our visit, but we probably will not come again." Peter Adkins, who lives in Sandown, moved to the town a few years ago and has, quote, "regretted it every single day since," unquote. He said, "I went to Shanklin yesterday and it was buzzing. Places like Margate and Ramsgate are doing well, but there's no investment here. Sandown has one of the best beaches on the south coast." Peter suggested investment in the area, including a hotel and conference centre, a marina on the south side of the pier, and shops to be relocated, so a populated high street could be formed again. Vivette Fryatt, owner of Viv's Cooking, said the local businesses are trying their best, and the rhetoric around Sandown is hindering trade. Viv said, "There should be encouragement for the existing businesses, but we're not getting the footfall, as people are saying don't come. Sandown will never be better if everyone keeps saying it's bad." Denise Carroll, manager of the RSPCA shop, said, "I love Sandown. Yes, some of it's tired, but what seaside town isn't? The people and the community really make the town. I wouldn't live anywhere else."
And now for some white memories, and first of all starting with days gone by. 125 years ago, in July 1900, a meeting was held to discuss the desirability of holding a carnival in Ryde. It was unanimously decided to go ahead with the idea. A short, thought-provoking quote from P.T. Barnum appeared in a corner of the county press. "I say, if a man has got goods for sale and he does not advertise them in some way, the chances are that one day the sheriff will do it for him."
100 years ago, in July 1925, due to a drought, the island's strawberry season was a disaster. Very little of the fruit could be harvested, which was a hard blow for strawberry farmers. Dabel's clothes shop was advertising its mid-season sale, and women could buy a will-fit wrap-round corset in pink brocade for 5 and 11 pence, 29p in today's money.
35 years ago, in July 1930, the Isle of Wight Rose, Carnation and Sweet Pea Society's annual show was described as a magnificent vista of colour. The show at Newport's Drill Hall was praised by speakers as being charming to the eye and nostril alike. Islanders who enjoy a tipple had the opportunity to visit various locations around the island, which were screening a wine for the discerning Amorel Sparkling Muscatel. Hosteliers involved including the Ryde Castle Hotel, Brook House Country Club and Totland Bay Hotel. A new RNLI lifeboat, which was built by the Cowes firm J.S. White & Co., was launched at Holyhead. The vessel was a 52-foot squin-screw diesel-engined boat.
50 years ago, in July 1975, a little-known Anthony Mingle was being congratulated for his graduation from Hull University. Anthony gave a BA Hons degree in drama. 10 tons of sugar was spilt over the top of Newport High Street when the British Road Service's lorry carrying it turned the corner from Pyle Street too sharply. 6 young holidaymakers had to be rescued from the base of Culver Cliff after they were cut off by the rising tide. The youngsters, aged between 12 and 17, had climbed around the rocks at Culver into caves, which can only be accessed at low tide.
Now, history of an unsung treasure. Hidden away in secluded private grounds above Whitecliff Bay is unsung national treasure Stainwood Battery. It was one of a chain of fortifications built on the island in Victorian times, including those at Puckpool, the Needles, Yarmouth and Bembridge. These forts and others were built to defend Britain from the attacks by the French that were expected at any time, but the attacks never came. Instead, Britain made peace with France, and the guns were never fired in anger. The forts were all decommissioned and left to slowly decay. Today, most are largely demolished shadows of their former selves, having been stripped of virtually all their original features. Except one, that is, Stainwood, just off Hillway Road in Bembridge. It stands alone today, virtually complete, most of its buildings being perfectly preserved inside and out, still looking much the way it did the day it came into service. It is the best preserved battery in Britain. Stainwood High Angle Battery, to give its full name, became operational in 1896. It was heavily armed with six 12-ton guns, with a complement of 10 to 12 crew per gun. But after just 3 years' service, it was decommissioned. Its rapid fall down was due to 2 simple but fatal flaws. The first flaw was that Stainwood was so far inland that the gun crews were unable to see any sea at all, let alone Sandown Bay, which was the area it was built to defend. Instead, they received their firing instructions and trajectories by telegraph from remote observation posts who did not have line of sight to the bay. The massive guns would then be fired with a tremendous boom, which would be heard for miles around, including by, of course, the intended target, the French ships in the bay. At this point, the laws of physics take over. Sound travels 1 mile in 5 seconds, which meant that 5 to 10 seconds after the cannon was fired, the French would have heard the boom, telling them a shell was on its way. Unfortunately, the speed of the shells leaving the cannon was a lot slower than sound, so much so that they would not arrive at the bay until up to a minute after the boom, which allowed the French to leisurely disperse to safer waters.
The second flaw was the decisive one. Britain and France had made peace by the time the battery was finished, making it redundant overnight. And so it was that only a few years after its construction, at great public expense, the government closed the fort and decided to sell it. It is at this point that John Isaac Thornycroft comes into the story. Thornycroft was a famous and very successful boat builder, supplying torpedo boats and other military naval craft not only to Britain but to navies around the world. In 1883 he had bought Stayne House and the surrounding woodland to allow him to work and carry out experiments in peace and quiet, including testing the shapes of ships' hulls using a lily pond in the garden. Unfortunately for Thornycroft, his peace and quiet didn't last long. Within a few years, the War Office had bought land adjacent to his house and announced they were to build a defence battery there. Thornycroft protested, but to no avail. However, what he could never have imagined was that after just 3 years in service, the fort would be closed. It was mothballed in 1898, and in 1909 the fort and surrounding land was put up for sale. Thornycroft bought the entire site, lock, stock and barrel, for £630, a knockdown price, bearing in mind the War Office had spent nearly £15,000 building it. At a stroke, Thornycroft got back his peace and quiet. Ironically, he had no real use for the fort he now owned, and apart from a small area he used for storage, he left the tunnels and contents virtually untouched. Still in family hands, his descendants have adopted the same attitude, and amazingly, all the fort's principal features have survived intact, including a massive indoor test tank built in 1910, which survives to this day. The tunnels and rooms are perfectly preserved, looking just as they did over 130 years ago. Even the signs on the wall have survived in mint condition, making the fort a unique and fascinating place to visit. Luckily, the current owners kindly allow rare access to the battery on a small number of occasions during the year. The trips are managed by Restore the Story, a not-for-profit charity run by acknowledged local historians Steve Burden and Joe Thornton. There are still some visits available this year.
And now we have my view. And this is Town and Parish Councils. What are they for? From Matthew Chatfield, columnist. Town and parish councils get a rough deal in many ways. For a start, the TV show The Vicar of Dibley didn't do much to dispel the stereotype of harmless, bumbling oldsters muttering impotently at each other. But to dismiss these third-tier councils so easily is to fundamentally misunderstand their vital role in the fabric of our island life. Many of us don't appreciate that local councils are often professional multi-million pound enterprises delivering vital community services. Think about it. While County Hall is bound by law to grapple with big, expensive issues that affect us all, social care, schools, highways, it's now our town and parish councils that are closest to the ground, dealing with the nitty-gritty, day-to-day concerns that impact our immediate neighbourhoods. Only a few years ago, much of this was controlled centrally by the Isle of Wight Council. Now, government funding cuts mean that in many places, town and parish councils are the ones championing local events, maintaining our public realm and ensuring the parks and beaches are safe for all. It is the parish council, usually with a dedicated group of locals working alongside them, who keeps these services ticking over. Councillors are unpaid, and anyone who's served as a local councillor will confirm it is a largely thankless task. But when people feel as though their local parish council is an unwelcoming place, trouble soon follows, as we have seen recently on the island. It's critical that the whole community can engage with their parish councils, not just those with the loudest voices or most spare time. Stroll through any of our island towns or villages and you'll see the fingerprints of your local council, from the flower beds that brighten our high streets to the endlessly debated public toilets. These are often the fruit of their work. They are custodians of our local heritage, providers of help to the vulnerable, and often the first port of call for residents with a problem. These days it can feel as though our communities are opaquely managed by distant forces, and we can feel disconnected from decisions that affect us. Town and parish councils offer a real opportunity for direct engagement. They are hyper-local democracy in action. They're made up of our neighbours, our friends, the people who share our frustrations, and our love for this island. When you see a notice for a town or parish council meeting, or hear about a problem in your area that needs decisions to be made, resist the urge to scoff or whinge. Instead, consider popping along or just email your local councillor. You might be surprised at the passion, the dedication, and genuine desire to improve our shared spaces that you find there. These councils are not just a bureaucratic formality, they are a part, albeit often unsung, of what makes the Isle of Wight a special place to live. And for that they deserve our support, and perhaps a tad less of that characteristic island moaning.
We now have What's On. On Sunday 6th of July, Shanklin Town Brass Band at 3 p.m. give an afternoon concert at Rillstone Gardens, 11 Popham Road, Shanklin. On Saturday 19th of July, the Tritone Singers give a summer concert at 7 p.m. This costs £10 and is a varied programme of summer music. There's something for everyone. It's at All Saints Church, Gurnard, Tottens Hill, Cowes. You can telephone for more details on 07807 16 5574.
Club night to reignite late scene. A new club night is promising to reignite the late night music scene on the island. Fruity Licious will launch on August the 1st at Stringers Bar in Newport, bringing house, hard house and new school breaks to the forefront. Paul Barrett, organiser of Fruity Licious, said, "This isn't just a club night, it's a statement. We're here to prove that the Isle of Wight still knows how to party. With all of our familiar venues long gone, we're bringing that spirit back, reimagined for 2025. With no nightclubs operating on the island, organisers hope the event will help revive the Isle of Wight's dance music culture. The launch night will feature Moomin, known for his sets at iconic Isle of Wight venues, Keats and Livingston's. Ronnie Peggs will also perform, bringing his signature underground house sound. Headlining the night is Chalk E. White, a veteran of UK's original acid house movement, who played alongside legends like Carl Cox and Slipmatt in the late 80s in London. Tickets are now on sale for £10 from The Price is White.
4 gardens in Arreton will open to the public to raise money. This is on Sunday, July the 6th, from noon to 4:30 p.m. The gardens will welcome visitors to support Home Start and the Island Scouts. Hazley Manor will host a plant stall and offer cream teas, while the Coach House will also serve teas. Entry to all gardens is £5, with children entering for free. Visitors can park for free at Hazley and the community car park near the White Lion. The number 8 bus also stops near all the gardens. Programmes can be purchased at the first garden visited. All gardens will be signposted on the day.
And now we have a few letters to the editor. Pennywise, pound foolish, from George Clark in Shanklin. Last week's front page story about how the Isle of Wight Council managed to spend £500,000 over 4 months looking after a 10-year-old was brought into sharp relief for me when I bumped into a friend in the high street late Sunday afternoon. He was pushing a wheelbarrow as he had spent the day working voluntarily doing maintenance work around the War Memorial, which happens to be adjacent to Council Car Park. He was heading towards his van with wheelbarrow because he had been told by traffic wardens that he would receive a penalty ticket if he left his vehicle in the car park, irrespective of the fact that he was using his skills for the benefit of the public good. On the one hand, the council can make eye-watering payments to a company that paid its directors huge dividends, whilst a public-spirited member of the community is threatened with penalty charges for doing work that saves the council money. I would suggest the council consider amending the motto on its coat of arms to penny wise, pound foolish.
Enormous missed opportunity from Cycle White. With reference to the Horsebridge Hill roadworks, which have caused a great deal of comment over the last few weeks, one thing that has been omitted from the discussion is that an enormous missed opportunity has occurred to improve the quality of the cycling, and in particular the walking environment on this stretch of road while the junction works have been taking place. The local cycling and walking infrastructure plan for Newport, written and adopted by the Isle of Wight Council, outlines the need for an improved walking and cycling route along the stretch of A3020 Road, Parkhurst Road, leading from the housing estate opposite the prison to the front of St Mary's Hospital and onwards towards Newport. The current infrastructure for cyclists is non-existent, and for pedestrians is very substandard, with a rough, narrow and poorly lit path running on the east side of the road past the houses on Hewitt Crescent towards St Mary's, and the only crossing point to the west side being located north of the housing estate. While it is understood there will be some sort of cycling connection between the new housing development on Horsebridge Hill and Dodner Lane, that will not be of use to people living on the existing estate, Partridge Road, Lewitt Crescent, etc., who wish to easily access St Mary's and onwards to Newport by bike or on foot. A joined-up approach by the Isle of Wight Council would have seen them planning to upgrade active travel facilities along the A3020 at the same time as the current junction works, in doing so reducing the overall cost and the disruption of achieving these various objectives. With all the new housing development along the A3020 corridor, the road network between Cowes and Newport is gradually reaching capacity, and by improving walking and cycling infrastructure, more residents will be willing to leave their cars at home, assuming they have access to one, thereby reducing traffic on the surrounding roads. The Isle of Wight Council has commissioned and adopted a whole series of local cycling and walking infrastructure plans covering large areas of the island. More effort needs to be made by the Council to look at how schemes in those LCWIPs can be implemented alongside other highway schemes so that benefits can be achieved for drivers, cyclists and pedestrians in the most cost-effective and least disruptive way possible.
Get a Grip from David and Lindsay Rowlands in East Cowes. First came the shambolic handling of the proposal to shut 6 island schools as a result of falling numbers of pupils. Following months of wrangling and indecision, the current position appears to be that only 1 school will now close, leaving our taxpayers to pick up the costs of keeping 5 schools open. Next came the appalling traffic disruption across the island over recent months, whereby closures of Bridlesford Road and Park Road, followed by closures of Lushington Hill, all of which caused chaos, but the worst was yet to come. The closure and long diversion route from Newport to Cowes was and continues to be an absolute disgrace on the part of Isle of Wight Council and Island Roads. The whole sorry mess shows complete lack of consideration to the residents of the island, causing enormous stress to them when they were unable to get to work on time, deliver their children to school on time, failure to meet hospital appointments, doctor's appointments, etc., and the list goes on. All of this disruption will have a devastating effect on our tourism on the island. Not only have our visitors had to contend with being fleeced by ferry prices, but apparently they are expected to negotiate obstacle courses when trying to visit the many tourist attractions on the island. It beggars belief that any member of the Isle of Wight Council could sanction such chaotic arrangements. Finally, the icing on the cake. The Isle of Wight Council has just spent a large amount of our council tax returning to the committee structure from the cabinet structure. And hey presto, the government is passing legislation to order all councils to operate under the cabinet structure across the country. It is a sensible way to run councils on a par with one another, but of course this will cost our council taxpayers another large sum of money to reinstate the cabinet structure. Enough is enough. All of these failures add up to incompetent leadership of the Isle of Wight Council. For all our sakes has to stop now. So come on all councillors, get a grip on this situation and rally together to have a vote of no confidence in the leader of the council, Phil Jordan, and get rid of him. And that's all we have time for today. So it's goodbye from Madeline.
And it's goodbye from John.
The BBC In Touch programme follows, and the scaffolding news follows that.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello. The sound of summer, if ever there was one, signalling the start of the BBC's coverage of the Wimbledon fortnight. One of the more recent innovations has been the fiercely contested wheelchair version. So could the next be an event for visually impaired tennis players? We look at what's reckoned to be the fastest growing VI sport. And less summary, the latest organisation supporting us to shed staff. But first, it's back to the drawing board for the government's attempts to reform our welfare system. This programme is being recorded before tonight's debate on the welfare bill, but we already know that there's major relief for blind and partially sighted people currently receiving PIPs, or the Universal Credit Health component for those of working age without a job. But those still opposing the bill are saying that if future claimants of benefits are to be treated differently to those already getting it, with tougher eligibility rules, this will create an obviously unfair two-tier system. However, another government suggestion has now said that a consultation on the way PIPs is awarded will now include disabled people and their organisations. So how big a difference could this make for future visually impaired applicants? Well, it seems certain one of the organisations involved in such a review would be the RNIB. So we welcome Mike Wordingham, who's their head of policy. Mike, first of all, what's your overall reaction to what we can only call the government's various changes of heart?
Well, I think, as you said in your introduction, as things stand, the reported concessions will create an unfair two-tier health and disability benefit system and push many blind and partially sighted people into poverty in the future. And as people with sight loss, we face additional unavoidable costs, and these range from £65 to £175 a week. And it's unacceptable that someone newly diagnosed with sight loss in 2027, during what is already an extremely difficult time, could be hit by the tightened criteria and miss out on daily living component of PIP.
But you would acknowledge, Mike, this will be a considerable relief to those who felt threatened with the prospect of losing their personal independence payments or part of their employment-related universal credits?
It's absolutely welcome that the government have relooked at it. And we know that when the welfare changes were initially announced, our counselling service received far more calls, and so we appreciate that the anxiety has been lifted from some of us as blind and partially sighted people, but these concessions don't go far enough.
You talk about a two-tier system, but if there's to be a reassessment of how eligibility for PIPs is assessed, this could make a significant difference to future visually impaired applicants. Presumably, for instance, one of the elements that you would want to discuss is this rule in the original proposals that applicants would need to score a full 4 points in at least one of the categories within the assessment. What's your feeling about this? It's not clear in Liz Kendall's speech whether that will be changed. It just has been said, well, it won't affect current people who get PIPs.
Yes, we need more clarity, and we do need it to be changed. So under this legislation, as it stands, even with the reported concessions, blind and partially sighted people claiming PIP for the first time from November 2026 will need to score a minimum of 4 points in at least one activity to qualify for the daily living element of PIP. However, we know that some blind and partially sighted people who require PIP score just 2 in several individual daily living activities, and we feel that the current system of scoring 2 is the fairest way, and we don't feel it should change to 4 points.
So really what you'll be doing in any review is saying, as far as that element of it is, leave it as it is at the moment.
Absolutely. We don't want it to mean that blind and partially sighted people have to score 4 points.
We thought listener James put the point very clearly, who got in touch with us a little while ago, and it's worth reading again, I think. He said, we need collectively to make the case that blindness does not just affect one area of life. It's for many of us 101 daily challenges, obstacles, barriers, things we can't do without help, things that take longer, things that may be messier or even more dangerous without some level of assistance. Will you be putting those kind of points to Sir Stephen Timms, who is running this review?
We will. What we want is what we've been calling for throughout this process is proper consultation and co-production with disabled people and organisations like ours. And it's important that we are able to connect disabled people, blind and partially sighted people with decision makers to demonstrate the impact these changes have and how we have to show the barriers that we face and what support we need.
In talking about this, the government has said that, this will be a question of looking at the situation of people with serious disabilities or severe disabilities. Have you rather got the impression in some of this discussion that people don't regard blindness as a serious or severe disability?
No, I haven't got the impression in our conversations with Sir Stephen Timms or with the WP that they no longer see blindness as a serious condition. I just think there's a lack of understanding of the impacts of sight loss. And in any review and in our ongoing consultations with the government, we will make that point very clearly.
How do you expect this consultation to work? I'm assuming that the RNIB would want to make sure that its representatives on such a consultation would themselves be blind or partially sighted.
Yeah, absolutely. In the language of government, they talk about co-producing with disabled people and organisations that represent disabled people. So we see our role as connecting blind and partially sighted people with decision makers so that people with lived experience are generally part of the consultation. So, for example, over 2,300 blind and partially sighted people have written to their MPs so far. Some of that has resulted in these changes today, and we want to continue that so that blind and partially sighted people are connected as part of this review.
We now know the timescale on this consultation, that it'll begin later in the summer and go on till autumn 2026. Opponents of the bill would like to see the bill withdrawn until the consultation has taken place. Is that the RNIB's position?
Well, in the short term, we are asking for the government to pause the current process, subject to all the measures in the pathway to the work green paper, including the changes to PIP, to a full public consultation.
So you don't want it withdrawn, you want it paused?
Yeah, we urge MPs to vote against the bill at the second reading. And as the concessions are not enough and will create this two-tier system, we are calling for a pause to these reforms.
Mike Wordingham, thank you. Just to repeat, this programme was recorded before the debate, but that debate is only one early stage in discussion of the bill, and any tangible changes are still some way off. To get much greater clarity on how this will affect blind and partially sighted people, we need to talk to a minister, and we are continuing to press for one to appear on the programme, hopefully next week. Meanwhile, day-to-day support that we receive from organisations who represent us goes on, and sadly we're continuing to hear of the financial struggles many of those organisations are experiencing, the latest being the Macular Society. Well, that supports people suffering from the most prevalent form of eye disease, macular degeneration. We've received a string of emails from listeners who are particularly concerned about plans to cut the number of managers of the regional groups which provide local support. Anna Baldwin emailed us about her worries.
These groups provide friendship, information and peer support for thousands of people, many of whom cannot reach the sight charities and many of whom are in despair as they find their sight failing, often quite rapidly, at a time when they are alone and beset by other difficulties. I can see that making the 17 regional managers redundant would save about £500,000, but it would totally undermine the groups and probably result in a fairly rapid closure of many, if not most of them.
And then there's this from Willow Heesum. She says,
"It's the managers who set up the new groups, but that won't happen now. There are 320 to 350 support groups all over England who depend on their excellent regional managers. They back us up and are essential to our success. They offer personal help, support and guidance. They are familiar with the group's localities, hospitals and clinicians. They encourage fundraising and most of all, they encourage us. We want the society to pause, take stock and consider the consequences of what they are doing and maybe reconsider."
Well, we've been told that discussions are still taking place at the Macular Society about possible changes. But we have this personal statement from Ed Holloway, the Society's CEO.
As the plans are still under consultation and no final decisions have been made, we're not able to share any more detail at this time. However, we'd like to be really clear that there are no plans to close any of our local support groups. The groups are a vital part of what we do, and we know how much they mean to our community and everyone living with macular disease. Whilst we are proposing some changes to our staff team, we're completely committed to continuing to support our volunteers in their essential roles. We'll share any further details as soon as we're able to do so.
Well, to Anna, Willow and all those who are concerned about this, we assure you we will interview their CEO about it as soon as we can. Now, time to lighten up a bit, I think. As a dedicated sports fan, I've always enjoyed Wimbledon. But when I was growing up, I never found a satisfactory way to play a blind version, unlike many other sports like football and cricket. But things have moved on, and now visually impaired tennis is a reality for an increasing number of people. Clubs are springing up all over the country, and one of its most enthusiastic exponents is Janice Wallace, who, as well as playing herself, has had a big hand in setting up a club in Sheffield and indeed in developing a Yorkshire league. And she joins us. Janice, first of all, what got you into visually impaired tennis? Because I gather originally it wasn't really on your radar.
No, it wasn't. I was always been a bit of a gym bunny. I wasn't into tennis at all. It all stemmed from when we were allowed back into the gyms after lockdown. And I was getting increasingly frustrated because in a class, people were coming to me and asking me to move 2 metres away from them. And of course, I can't see 2 metres in front of me, so I found it very frustrating every time I went into a class.
So that was all the restrictions that there were at the time about close contact?
Exactly. And that's when I got in touch with the RNIB, who got me in touch with Matt Elkington, who got me in touch with my local tennis coach, Ben Howarth. And it all started from there. I said, I just want to run about and exercise. I didn't want to know how to score. I didn't want to know any rules because I had no intention of playing any tournaments. I didn't even know there were tournaments. But obviously, since then, since starting up the club, I've had to learn how to score.
So you went from knowing nothing to forming a club, which I gather is now thriving in Sheffield.
It is, yeah. I think we're one of the, not only the fastest growing clubs, but probably one of the biggest VI tennis clubs. I don't know if there's any bigger anywhere else.
There's a Yorkshire League now.
Yes. So normally for VI tennis, when you play regional tournaments, it's a weekend away. It's a cost implication. As a grassroots club, we wanted to play with other grassroots players and not have that cost of going away and getting to somewhere else in the UK.
But it is it's now a proper competitive league that you've got.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So last year we approached Yorkshire Tennis to help us get a pilot scheme set up, which we'd done. We had a very successful pilot in November last year. Everybody turns up, everybody gets a game and everybody goes home that same day. Plus the social aspect of it, you know, people are sitting around in the cafe and chatting and getting to know, making new friends. This year, Yorkshire Tennis have invited us to be part of their league. We have our own delivery team that deliver the VI Doubles League, and our team report to the board for Yorkshire Tennis. And I think this is the first of its kind in the UK.
But this is not just a Sheffield movement or a Yorkshire movement, it's going national. And the Lawn Tennis Association, the LTA, is playing a big part in spreading the game. And also joining us is Matt Elkington, who's the EDI programme manager at the LTA. So Matt, I mean, what's the Lawn Tennis Association's policy now on disability tennis generally?
We do have various programmes for people with different disabilities and different impairments, whether that be a physical impairment that ends up you want to play in a wheelchair. Obviously, you see that at Wimbledon with some of our top stars like Alfie Hewitt and Gordon Reid. VI tennis, as Janice has already talked about, and we also run stuff for adults and young people with the learning disabilities, and also for people with long-term health conditions, Parkinson's, etc., trying to slow the game down and showcase that, again, the sport isn't always what we see at Wimbledon. It's a lot more of a welcoming and inclusive environment than maybe what we can see at Wimbledon, where we all wear white and we've all got to be really good. Well, we can showcase it in such a different way and such a different audience.
So as far as VI tennis is concerned, any idea how many participants you've got?
Yeah, so roughly we have around 40 venues in the UK that deliver VI tennis. And out of that, we think we've got around 800 to 900 players playing regularly, which is unbelievable. The challenge we have with VI tennis is definitely the need for indoor venues. Janice will tell you, VI tennis outside can be a challenge for people who are blind and partially sighted due to the changing conditions, etc. And as the LTA, we need more and more indoor tennis courts. And in Sheffield, Janice will tell you, we haven't got enough in Sheffield, never mind in the whole of the UK.
You probably keep losing the ball outside, don't you? Is that part of the problem?
Yeah, it's definitely the changing conditions and the sun coming out and then dipping behind a cloud and the wind, etc., because the balls themselves are actually foam balls with ball bearings inside them to make people be able to hear them as they fly across the court. So yeah, varying conditions means we do need that indoor court situation.
Now, I suggested at the beginning of the programme, Janice, that we might end up with visually impaired people being a part of the Wimbledon fortnight in the same way that wheelchair users are now. How near to that do you think we are?
Well, as part of a new scheme, Play Away to Wimbledon, this will be the third year that VI tennis has been played at Wimbledon in August, but in the indoor courts. I've played at Wimbledon in the indoor courts the last 2 years. Such an amazing experience, and the courts are fabulous. The hospitality was great. Everyone looked after us. And what they've done is they take the top 4 players from each site classification, male and female, and invite them down to play the games over a couple of days in August.
And Matt, what's the situation for this year's scheme? Obviously still to come. How can people get involved with that? Presumably the ones who are coming this year, they're already chosen, are they?
Yeah, definitely. So as Janice says, we've got players coming from all our site classifications to the Wimbledon event. It's another way, as you've said, like, how do we get people to experience Wimbledon? This is another way of doing that. We've already had people qualify. You need to qualify from our regional tournaments. And obviously you've got to try and win those tournaments or win your site classifications in order to qualify. However, next year, if you are interested and you wanted to, actually, that is a dream, I want to go and play at Wimbledon and I am blind or partially sighted, then why not get in touch with the LTA and we'll put you in touch with your local club and you can start your journey there for sure.
Right. And just more generally, if someone's listening to this and thinks, I'd love to have a go at that, not to just get to Wimbledon, I'd like to have a go at playing tennis, what would you do, Matt?
So the best thing to do is get in touch with the LTA. Our pages on our website are very informative. They give you a very detailed information around what the sport looks like. There's loads of interactive videos for people to see what tennis looks like for you. It doesn't have to look like Roger Federer and Alcaraz on at Wimbledon right now. It can look like how we need it to look like, depending on what your ability is when it comes to physical activity.
OK, well, look, Janice Wallace, Matt Elkington, thank you both very much indeed for joining us. And that's it for today. Remember, we welcome your views, questions, comments. You can email in touch at bbc.co.uk or you can leave voice messages on 0161 836 1338. From me, Peter White, and producer Beth Hemmings. Goodbye.
Scaffolding and skips news, week commencing 4th of July. Newport area, 10 Crocker Street. Salvation Army Church, 72 Pyle Street. Newport area skips, 84 Hinton Road.
Right area, Aspire, 35 to 36 High Street, 2 Union Street. Charcoal Grill, 65A Union Street. Michelangelo's, 30 St Thomas's Street. White's Fish and Chip Shop, 41 to 42 High Street. The ride area skips, The Lodge, 1 Ferry Road Seaview, 11 Hamilton Road Binstead and 2 Melville Street.
Ventnor area, 28 South Street and 21 Church Street.
Sandown area skips 10 Dennis Road, Lake.
Cowes area, Lloyds Bank 71 High Street and 49 Sun Hill. Cowes area skips 13 Stanley Road.